Welcome to Telling the Tale. I'm your host, Mitchell Farley Wolf, and I'm joined today, as I usually am on this podcast, with our co-host. I say our because isn't he all of our co-hosts? Dustin Jackson.
Great Scott. Haha, that's from Back to the Future.
Yeah, I feel like that's the most you can do with Back to the Future sometimes.
Yeah, I've been trying to think of good jokes for these intros. Boy, I sure blew my load on that first episode.
What'd you do in that first one?
I just did the I don't remember what I did. I remember I had a good one though.
Did you recite the entire script? Like, what do you mean you blew your load?
I feel like I just had I don't want to say a really good joke, but I had like the one joke you could do that would work for a podcast. Where
well, now I feel like
the theme.
I feel bad for not remembering it.
No,
if
it's
you had
fine.
the one joke that was so good.
I didn't say it was so good. I said it was the one.
All right. So, Dustin, we played the video game Back to the Future, the game, Episode 5, Out of Time, which is named after the license plate on the DeLorean, Out of Time. We're
so done.
We're so done.
We're so done with it.
With Back to the Future now. It released on June 23rd, 2011. It was directed by Dennis Lennart and written and designed by Hartzell and Stemmel. So, out of the way, all of the intro bits where we just talk about the particulars out of the way. Dustin, I was really excited to know your thoughts on this, because I played it through, and I definitely have some, like, I don't know, game designerly thoughts on this episode, but I really wanted to know how you, someone who is audibly growing out of love with the Telltale format on our show, felt about the wrap-up to probably Telltale's biggest budget game up to this point.
I liked it. I liked this episode. This is probably my favorite episode of the season.
Okay.
I felt like they stuck the landing. Even if they were I don't even want to say stumbling the whole way, because I don't think they did anything bad. It just kind of felt like the whole time, like let's say they're gonna jump the bar, but on their way over, they're walking at a leisurely pace and looking at their phone. But then at the very end, they do it. They stick the landing, and it wasn't super exciting getting there, but I think they ended on a high note.
So, I agree. I think that this episode was it had the amount of jumping from set piece to set piece and interesting plot progression and just interesting things going on that a Sam and Max episode typically would.
Yeah.
But it's doing that and sort of trying to... I get the impression that it's doing it and saying, well, you can only do this in a finale. Which is strange, because every episode of Sam & Max pretty much did this kind of thing.
Yeah, it does make me wish that we got more of what we get in this episode in the past episodes. We're not even in... Well, we technically are in Hill Valley in this episode, but we don't go to, the same locations. I don't think we go to any of the same locations we have been, except for outside the school, but that's really fast.
Yeah, I reckon that's true. We can talk about the particulars in a moment, but I want to stay focused at first just on the big picture of how this episode went. I was definitely more entertained, I think, than the previous episodes in the series. There was more shiny objects to think about and more reasons to get distracted. But
they dangled their keys in front of you a little more.
Yeah, but I'll be a little more sour on it than you, maybe. And I'll say that I don't think anything it's doing is particularly better or bigger than what the previous episodes of this game have done. It feels more like it's doing those things... Just the coat of paint on them is sort of giving the impression that it is more new stuff than usual, and mechanically I don't think it is almost at all.
Right. No, I totally agree. It's basically just all the same stuff, but I still feel like, given my feelings on the first 4 episodes, I feel like this one at least did the same thing a little better, like you said, with a new coat of paint. So I still enjoyed it more than the others, and that's fine with me because I didn't even dislike the other episodes. I was just they left me a little deflated, but this one I thought was a good one to go out on for them.
Yeah, we've gotten to a point where with Telltale where this is a stupid thing to say. They know we're doing the podcast and want us to get through them faster. It feels a lot like Telltale is almost precognizant of the fact that we have a podcast to do, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to just like finish this? You don't want to get stuck, do you? Good.
Here, we'll make like all these episodes an hour and a half at most, so you can just breeze through."
Yeah, we'll make Back to the Future just an easy, breezy, lemon squeezy sort of thing where you just go through the episode and you don't even have to think about it again a second time later that day. It won't stay in your head at all. But it can be something that you do just to have a fun time. You can be stuck. I remember taking sometimes 3 days to do a Sam and Max episode. That was when I was like really not trying to do it fast at all, to be fair. But
that's when you had a small animal brain and could not figure it out in like 2 hours.
Well, I don't know. There's times now when I get stuck in Sam and Max, but like because we need to get these done for the podcast, like there's ways of getting through puzzles in these games that they don't feel the greatest, and they maybe take a little longer if you than just getting it. Mm-hmm. But you can basically guarantee your way through a Telltale game.
Right.
And there's just nothing, there's just no roadblocks. It's entirely frictionless. If you don't get it, there's the hint system button, and it's very big, and it's always on screen.
Yeah, and it gives you 3 hints, too, and there's no penalty for it. I remember some games would have, like, achievements or trophies that'd be like, beat it without using any hints.
Yeah, I mean, we just did the CSI games, and those games have hints, but if you do them at the end of the episode when they're, like, grading you, it'll say, well, you sucked a little shit because you used a hint, and we don't like that here in law enforcement.
Well, the good thing about that is there's 0 difference between getting 1 hint and getting hints for every single room in the entire game, as we found out.
Yeah, and we really did test
Which
that.
case was that? I don't even remember. Was it the second one? We just asked, like, every hint. We were like, give us something. We don't know.
I think it was the second one because the first 2 cases in that game were the ones where it was before we agreed, let's just do the walkthrough. Let's just use the walkthrough the whole time.
Yeah, we don't want to do that again.
Yeah. But I would never use a walkthrough for this one because...
Yeah, it's really not that hard.
Yeah. There's one problem area I came across in this episode, and we'll talk about it when we get there, but nothing like taking a picture of the van and the crate at the same time or anything like that.
Oh, God. I still have nightmares every night.
Yeah, I can close my eyes sometimes, and I just am in an alley, and I'm like, where do I know this alley from?
Get the picture! Get the picture!
Yeah. You know that thing about New York alleys?
No, explain it to me.
Well, like in movies set in New York, you're always, especially like crime movies, you're always finding yourself in an alley like that.
Yeah.
New York does not have alleys. The city of New York doesn't have them. It doesn't, like, the city's just not built in that way. So all of those, if you ever see that, it's a tell that it's shot in, it could be shot in Georgia or in Toronto or something. Or Los
somewhere
Angeles.
That can pass for New York.
Yeah. It's definitely not New York. New York has never had those. It's an interesting thing.
See, I've only been to New York once, and it was a few years ago, and I don't remember. I didn't go out of my way to look for alleys, so I wouldn't have known. But now I know.
It's good that you didn't, because you would have. I mean, New York's big. You wouldn't have been able to.
I'm going to go all around New York looking for these alleys.
Yeah, it's a big town. I hear that it's like one of the bigger ones. Um,
One thing I'll say about Back to the Future, though,
yeah,
it
do that.
really does. I mean, obviously, given when it came out, but it really does strike me as the in between of old Telltale and Walking Dead, because it kind of feels like they're trying to sort of do both, where they have like the Sam and Max ish puzzles, but they also have like characters remembering things, like the names you choose,
Yeah.
and dialogue choices having different sort of outcomes with the characters. But it doesn't go all the way on either side. So it feels like it's very shallow on both ends, which it doesn't, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just I feel like Back to the Future doesn't really have any strengths.
that's an indictment.
That's mean to say, but it's more like you know that phrase "jack of all trades, master of none."
Uh-huh.
I feel like that's a phrase that gets used as a negative thing, but jack of all trades means you're still pretty good at everything, even if you're not, the best at them. And I don't even know if I'd say that about Back to the Future, but I'd say it's still good at some things.
Okay. Well, in that case, congratulations, Back to the Future. You have been awarded. You're never given an award for that. For being
you're probably
sort of good
the
at
one,
a lot of things.
Sort of good at some things, not so good at others.
Yeah, I agree.
Never the best at it.
I guess I agree on. I don't even know if I agree that's like an as good thing to be as really good at one thing. But
you know what? I'll say it's the best at being Back to the Future 4.
Yeah, out of everything that is it's better than the cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it the other day. I feel like if this were a movie, I'd be a lot more interested, because this is the kind of thing I would expect from a movie. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I feel like a lot of the scenes near the end of this episode, if I were watching a movie and seeing this, I would be invested. I would want to see how these characters get through this.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
The way Back to the Future ends is not a cliffhanger. It feels very solvent and solid. This ending does not feel that way. This ending is very much a cliffhanger. Do you think they thought they were doing another Back to the Future game?
Yes. I feel like there's no way they would have done what they did with this ending if they didn't. But at the same time, kinda, because I'm gonna jump ahead a little, and by a little I mean right to the ending. But
hang on. Before you do that,
okay.
There's another thing we should talk about in this episode, and let's get it out of the way
talk
first.
About it. Yes.
And then we'll talk about plot details specific to this episode of Back to the Future. Telltale Games, the currently existing company known as Telltale Games, put out a press release in Game Informer magazine recently. I haven't gotten a chance to sit down with a physical copy of the magazine, as is my wont, but the details, the high-level details in that magazine have emerged into the cybersphere for me to gaze upon. And let's talk about those for a second.
Okay.
They're reiterating in this article that there are two there's two games they're working on. They're working on The Expanse.
Ooh.
And they're working on The Wolf Among Us 2.
Yeah.
This is not new information, but just in case you thought, well, is there secretly 3 of them? It looks like they're strongly indicating there's 2. There's 2 games right now. The Wolf Among Us 2 had some plot details. I wish we had played it at this point, but we haven't. So, I don't have that much of a connection to the story of The Wolf Among Us yet.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We will get there. It's of course on the list. But this one is set 6 months later in the winter of New York City. I like winter things. I like Christmas themed things.
I do too. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Winter doesn't automatically mean Christmas.
Winter does not automatically mean Christmas, no, but Christmas
This
is
could take
in
place
the winter.
the day after Christmas.
I've been watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe tie-in streaming television show, Hawkeye, which is Hawkeye is a Christmas story, and it just the way that they're doing the thing they normally do, which can get kind of boring. But like, hey, like, look, you can look around and it's snowing in New York. What a vibe! I've really enjoyed that.
I feel like something taking place on Christmas gives it like a bonus point. So like, even if it's not like great, you know that movie, the live action How the Grinch Stole Christmas?
Of course, I know it.
I think that movie, if it didn't have Jim Carrey in it, it would not be very good.
Okay, yeah.
But if it were, it's Christmas. You still get like all these cool Christmas visuals. I would still like it. I would still like put it on. I'd be like, I like this.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what
like
that movie, but not about Christmas, even is.
Yeah, their town is so like
I guess it's the Cat in the Hat.
Drenched in Christmas.
The Mike Myers Cat in the Hat. People like that though, and I don't like that.
I love that movie. We here in my household adore that movie.
I know you do. It's a personality defect, but
it's so funny. I don't know what you're talking about.
So that's The Wolf Among Us 2. It's set during the winter, and that gives me the impression that we are about 1 year out from it. I think they would want to set the release of that game also during the winter.
I agree.
Do you think they're going to do one episode per month or more like a one per week? If they're already all done by the time the first episode is released, I'm not sure what they're going to do.
So here's the thing. We talked about this on a... I don't remember if it was in an episode or off air, but it was my impression that it was going to be episodic, but they were just going to release them all at once.
Right, they're not doing that. They are releasing them episodically.
Okay, so I would assume they would stick to the 1 a month plan just because it gives people more time to play and talk about it. Personally, I hope that's what they do. I don't know if I'd want to get a new Wolf Among Us every week. I mean, I guess that's exactly what we're doing with this show.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, just playing them and then not having to either take notes or worry about remembering stuff or recording or editing or publishing a podcast about it. I feel like I could swallow these one a week easy. They are not hard to chew for me at this point. Mm-hmm. My muscles are so strong.
Look at you. You're a big boy now.
I'm getting bigger every day.
You got those chompers?
Yeah, I think they could do it once every week, but yeah, it probably just makes more sense to do it.
It just makes it easier to digest if it's once a month.
I think it's easier to digest. I also think it's easier to fall off completely.
Oh, that's true.
Because I feel like, if I remember correctly, that was kind of the vibe on Back to the Future as it came out. Because people were really excited for Back to the Future. It was Telltale's like biggest thing. And then I don't remember anyone talking about it as it was wrapping up. I only played the first episode when it came out. And I assume that I'm not uncommon in that.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said the exact same thing. He only played the first episode and then just didn't play the rest because it didn't, wow him.
Yeah.
And I gotta be honest, I feel like I probably would have done the same if I wasn't shackled to a podcast.
Yeah, if more episodes were like this last episode of the game, then I might have stuck with it, but
yeah.
I guess they felt that they had to work up to this. And I guess I just don't agree with that design mindset. They didn't have to work up to this. They could have just done this.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much how, like, all their other games I've played feel like. Like, in Sam & Max and The Walking Dead, I never feel like, okay, well, this has got to be building up to something exciting. It's just exciting the whole way through it. They can just do it. But like we said before, it's probably part of needing to use a big license like Back to the Future. They gotta play by the rules.
You know what I think? I think more than any one thing that hurts Back to the Future, hang on. The other thing Telltale is making is The Expanse.
That's true.
If we just get it out of the way, we can just talk about it and just finish it. Guess what I did last night, Dustin?
What did you do last night? I know what you did last night, but tell the audience.
I watched 7 episodes of The Expanse.
7 episodes? That's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, that's 7/10 of the first season of the show. And
did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it. I think I did.
Nice.
It's a slow burn for me. It has been described to me by people who enjoy the show as the Game of Thrones of space. Which is a good way to get me to watch a thing. I don't know if I 100% agree with it, but I can get where they're coming from. It's a large sort of ensemble cast where there's these characters who are sort of the bit players on the brink of bringing their world into war. Just a very quick plot. Here's the premise of the show, The Expanse,
Okay.
and I assume just the same of the books the show is based on. In about 300 years from now, the solar system has been colonized by humans. There's Earth. That's like a big hotspot for humans still. We'll still be doing that whole Earth thing. Mars, which is similarly big in terms of like how many humans are there, but they're still like working toward making it a greenhouse, just making it full of oceans and plant life. They're
Right.
like very slowly doing that. And most of Mars is sort of like more of a militaristic state right now because they're just so focused on that goal of making life work on Mars that they're not paying attention to anything else.
Right.
And there's the belt, the asteroid belt, with Ceres being like the largest body in the asteroid belt. It's a fun fact about Ceres. 1/3 of all the mass in the asteroid belt is just in Ceres. So,
Wow.
yeah, talk about a thin belt.
Oh, you said it.
So the people that live out there, those are like the 3 main places people live. So the people that live on the belt are called belters. And
All right.
yeah, right. They collect frozen like rock ice from the asteroids out on the belt, and they ship the ice to Earth and Mars because people just need water. Like water is one of the highest commodities that you can have.
That makes sense.
And because of that like relationship, you've got the people on the asteroid belt, which is like the place where all the high resources are, being treated the worst by Earth and Mars. It feels a lot like the American Revolution, where the like England is abusing the colonists, even though the colonists have all the stuff. Like America was so much more fertile than England at that time, and there's a disproportionate arrangement of power in that case. So it's those 3 factions, Earth, Mars, and the Belt, sort of like trying to not upset the Cold War balance. That's what the show's all about.
Right.
And like along the way, there's some like individual characters you follow who keep not being blown up in space, and you're like, whoa, that was a close shave. And that's the whole show.
Barely made it out of that one.
Oof, can you imagine?
We're still Game of Thrones, but they're in space.
So that's the idea. So being one of those characters in this universe, in a Telltale game, is something I admittedly still don't understand. I wanted to come to this episode being like, I watched it, and now
I get
let
it
me
now.
tell you how this game's gonna work. And I don't know. Still, it's gonna be some space stuff. Is still my answer to that question. I have not yet met the character who is the protagonist of the game in the show. I know she shows up. I know she's like a big deal, but I don't know her yet.
You know what's funny? I feel like there aren't a whole lot of games about space that I'm like super jazzed about. I can't really think of there's tons of them. There's like Mass Effect. There's all these space games where you explore planets in space. I can't think of like a single game that takes place in this crazy space area where I'm like, I love this. I love that I'm in space.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I haven't played very many of them.
Yeah, my favorite game of all time is The Outer Wilds. So I got at least one.
I was thinking of picking that up sometime. That's on Game Pass, right?
It at least was at some point. I don't know if it still is. Yeah, and the DLC came out earlier this year, which was great. Came out on my birthday. That was a fun thing. Yeah, and then other space games might happen in the future. Who knows?
Yeah,
there
maybe
might be
someday.
other ones. Yeah. So let's talk about Back to the Future. Not a space game, but it is sci-fi.
Yeah, it kind of counts.
Yeah, space is sci-fi. It's the same.
Same shit. Who cares?
Dustin, would you like to do the plot one this time? Would you like to be the plot boy?
Like, just walk us through the plot.
However you want to take it.
So this episode starts us out at the science fair, the big science fair,
Right.
that's been built up. This is where Doc was inspired to become a scientist. This isn't like he saw Frankenstein, but this was one of the big defining moments of his life. But there's some trickery afoot. Wait, because we find out that Doc Brown, Citizen Brown, Doc Brown, has he's talked to Edna, and they are planning to get you in trouble. So you can't. They're trying to get you to look bad in front of the police, so they can arrest you. They make it sound like you're a Russian spy. What do they call you again? Yakov Smirnov?
Yakov Smirnov, yeah.
That's it. And the police officer's like, look, this lady, we get it. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Don't worry. But if you could, like, get some sort of evidence so we can throw her away.
I liked how this was framed. Because, like, you think that the whole thing is going to be like, well, now I need to prove I'm not Russian or something. And then the police are like, no, you're fine. Just
look, we get it.
She is the worst. You just gotta
yeah, and we find out
we
were right to think she was the worst, because we were talking about it, like, was it last episode or the episode before? I was saying she wasn't that bad at first. Then you said no, she there's some things there that say she's basically been like this all her life, and it turns out that's right.
Yeah, I think my argument before was like, I thought, I was predicting that the game was trying to make a statement on this person has not yet become criminally insane and dangerous, but some of the things that build up that personality are, like, some of those ingredients in the recipe are still very much in her brain now. And the game is sort of saying, like, hey, those little seeds of shitty personality, you might be able to brush them off as not being a big deal, but they can gestate over time, and they're always present. So that's what I thought they were going for. Turns out they were going much more direct with it, which is saying, like, no, she's just been bad the whole time.
Yeah, it turns out she was the speakeasy arsonist.
Yeah, she lit that whole place on fire.
Yeah, on purpose. You just ask her why, and she's like, duh, because Gross. It sucks? Yeah, ew.
Ew. Illegal.
Ew, yucky, burn it. Burn it down, kill them. So that's great. We learn that she's bad and we should not feel bad for ruining her life. So, but also, we see young Emmett Brown talking to older Doc Brown, who really does not want your plan to go the way you've been talking.
Yes, Citizen Brown.
Yes, Citizen Brown. He knocks him out. He makes him, he's like, hey, what does this smell like? And then he passes out, and then he kidnaps him.
Yeah, the old does this smell like chloroform to you trick. Oldest one in the book.
If I had a nickel for every time I fell for that.
Not only does Citizen Brown knock out young Emmett, he also knocks out Jacques Duteau, who is a famous marine biologist, which those don't exist. Yeah, name one. Dustin, name one famous marine biologist.
Jacques Duteau.
Okay, you got me. I'm wrong. He knocks him out and steals his scuba suit so he can hide young Emmett Brown in the diving bell he has, and he pretends to be Jacques Duteau. But I thought when we opened it up, we would see young Emmett and the real Jacques Duteau in there. But Jacques Duteau's just gone. I think Doc might have murphed him.
You think so? I thought the understanding was Jacques Duteau is not a real guy. I thought it was just Doc the whole time in a diving suit.
Well, early in the episode, when you see Citizen Brown in like the glass house, Jacques Duteau's still there. Like, and he has like a different voice.
See, that was the thing that confused me, because I wasn't like paying attention to his voice, and so when he started sounding like Doc, I was just like, oh, I guess I just didn't realize that was Doc's voice. But it was a different voice beforehand?
I'm pretty sure. I don't think he just invented the whole character of Jacques Duteau.
He's pretty creative.
Yeah, he made the whole bathysphere real quick.
See, I think he could have. I definitely think he could have made him up, because that just seems plausible to me. It feels like he could come in dressed in this big diver suit and tell Artie McFly, I am the famous Jacques Duteau. And then Artie would be like, wow, a famous man.
I think Doc Brown has always been portrayed as being quite cartoonishly smart, but I think the ability to build a whole submarine bathysphere in like a few seconds to be a Count Olaf-esque.
A few seconds, but doesn't he have a DeLorean?
He didn't build it from scratch, and even when he made the time machine, it took him 6 months.
He could have gone back in time and made a bathysphere.
Huh. He could have. He had a different voice at the beginning. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He just had a different.
I like how you just pulled that. You sounded so dumbfounded, and then just immediately, no, he had a different voice.
It's just
no. I do think you're right. I just wasn't paying attention. So when it turned out he was Doc, I just thought, oh, he was Doc the whole time. Because I feel like we would have followed up on where Jacques Duteau is, because we don't like see him stashed anywhere. He never comes up again. He's out of the story once Doc has taken over.
Yeah, I think the reason is because he's not important at all.
That is very true.
A character not being
well. Hold on,
at
Mitch.
all.
We haven't gotten to our weekly guy yet, so maybe hold on. On that
Okay. Do you want to explain how you thwart Jacques Duteau, aka Citizen Brown?
Yeah, I actually liked this. It really isn't that much of a puzzle, but I did like it. So Emmett's being hidden in the bathysphere. Doc is being very cagey about it. He's like, "Oh, sorry, the gears, they're stuck. Oh, it doesn't work. Sorry." But then you go up and you step on the air hose, and it starts making young Emmett Brown suffocate inside the bathysphere, which affects modern day Doc Brown. I thought this was, like I said, it's not really a puzzle since you don't do anything. The whole thing is you just stay standing on the hose. But I did think it was an interesting story beat for the. I thought it was a clever way for Marty to find out.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice way to show that, like, how at odds Marty and Brown are at this point, and how much of a villain Citizen Brown really has turned into. You have to do this to who is essentially your best friend. Every high schooler's best friend, a disgraced nuclear physicist. I will say this is the part that I was alluding to earlier that I didn't really like the puzzle on, and I got stuck.
The hose.
Yeah, so I did it. I stepped on the hose, and like I stepped on it for about, it felt like 15 seconds at least. And Doc started to say stuff, and it like did a camera shift to looking inside the bathysphere, and he was saying like, "Come on, stop, get off the hose." And Marty's like, "I don't think I will." But then nothing happened. And I thought, okay, well, I'm missing some part of it. I need to do this and something else.
Yeah, when the whole thing is you just need to keep doing it. You just stand there. So I definitely agree.
Yeah, you need to do it, but like for 30 seconds to a minute, like a long time.
Yeah, like it would be one thing if it was like 5 seconds and it like gives you some feedback on that you're doing it right, but you have to like wait a long time to get any sort of feedback.
Yeah, if you were holding your breath, you could have like also asphyxiated along with Doc Brown. So it's a realistic amount of time, I guess. But
it makes you really feel for him.
Yeah, it is not.
I also need to breathe.
Yeah, there weren't enough tells that like I was actually making progress and whittling down Doc's resolve. It just felt like, oh, I'm not doing this right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I definitely agree with you. I come at it, I like it in a story way. In a story way, I think it's a cool, clever idea. But gameplay-wise, I totally agree. It does not do a good job of making you feel like this is what you're supposed to do.
So, after you rescue young Emmett from the bathysphere, he's able to present his science experiment. Mm-hmm. And his science experiment is a version of the rocket car it just self-propels based on electromagnetism instead of rockets.
Right. Well, before even that, before Emmett can do his presentation, we have to get Edna arrested.
Oh, yeah. And we do that by recording her confessing to burning down the speakeasy.
Yeah. Yeah, you just do a really bad Doc Brown impression and tell her it's... Well, really bad is harsh, but I feel like if you were to hear him, you would not buy that he's...
It was interesting.
That he's Carl Sagan.
Because it was a really bad Doc Brown impression, but it was a really good not Marty impression. It didn't sound like the same guy at all, so that's good, but it's like, if you can do it so far as to be not identifiable as the guy you are, maybe just go a little further to be a specific other guy.
Yeah, I guess maybe when phones weren't as prevalent, maybe you would just be like, oh, I guess he just sounds different over the phone.
That's probably true. I bet the reception over a phone in 1931 was terrible. I bet you couldn't... Like, if you made out words at all, you would assume you're talking to the human, if not a human.
The human.
So then
Trixie Trotter's there too. She's presenting.
Oh yeah.
And you can call her in the House of the Future and just mess with her. You can just do like prank calls.
Yeah, I like that bit a lot. Trixie's consistently great.
Can I say something about this part of the chapter? So, I was looking at the achievements. I throughout this whole game, there are so many missable achievements in this game, and I really don't want to go back and get them all. So, while I didn't look up like how to do any of the puzzles in this episode, I did look up missable achievements.
Okay.
And there's one here in this room where I'm like, how would you ever know to do that unless you looked it up? Did you ever look at the theremin booth? There's one of the science fair booths is a theremin.
I did, but I mostly ignored it.
Okay. If you interact with it 7 times, you get an achievement.
Neat.
Yeah.
What's the achievement called?
I don't know. I didn't write it down.
7 times a theremin.
7 times a theremin.
Keeps the doctor away.
One thing I did like about it was, so anytime he interacts with the theremin, Marty has like a little animation. He does this fun little thing. And one of his animations is the Guybrush dance from Tales of Monkey Island. He just does the same dance Guybrush does, since, they already had that animation they could use.
That's great.
Yeah, it's neat. It doesn't. It's not important, but it's neat. But then after the 7th time, like the more you interact with it, he starts getting crazier with his moves, and like you'll see like people behind him like staring at him. They're like, ew, weird. And then the last time, Cue Ball's watching him, and then once Marty gets off, Cue Ball's like, yeah, I guess I'll try this out.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's just a fun little thing. It has nothing to do with the story, but you get a little Cue Ball in there.
It's kind of like the Benang thing, where every time you Benang, it gets worse, and Max
worse.
Max likes it less.
Yeah,
he's like, I don't know.
It's just, I love that. Just picturing Max going like,
So when young Emmett is like about to get in his hover car thing, and it's about to go well, and then his dad shows up and demands that we do a father-son therapy session in the middle of the whole thing.
He demands that we do it.
He demands it, and the episode comes to a screeching halt as you literally walk back and forth between both characters, carrying messages to them because they don't want to talk to each other.
Yeah. I did, like, as a puzzle, obviously it doesn't, who cares, who gives a shit, but I did like that we finally got to see his dad. Again, story-wise, I liked this part.
He looks like a German owl.
Yeah. I liked seeing him kind of lighten up on his son a little bit. Even if gameplay-wise, it was about as uninteresting as it could possibly be.
It really was. Yeah, I just don't even know what they're going for with this whole section.
I really think it is. It really does strike me as that we're almost kind of at The Walking Dead, but not quite. Where they're trying to be more. They're trying to get the gameplay to match the story a little more invested in like interacting between these characters rather than being an actual good puzzle. Because like the thing is, Walking Dead really does not have that many puzzles. It's more about character interaction, which is fine. But Back to the Future just feels like it's caught in between these two eras of Telltale, and it kind of suffers for it. But like I said, I did like this on a story level, and it doesn't last that long, so that's good at least. And I didn't have to redo it again. My game didn't crash. Actually, my game did crash, but not at this part.
Did your game crash up to this part? Where was it?
No, it crashed later.
Okay, we'll get to it then. Yeah, even narratively, I guess I just don't care. I think the relationship between Doc and his Brown, Doc and his dad. Wow,
Doc and his Brown.
Is not an interesting thing at all. If it was right after the first episode, I would have said like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that's what this season is about. But we did all those other episodes where it didn't matter at all. So I just didn't care.
I feel ya.
But you get them to like each other, and then his dad lets him do the experiment. So he drives the hover car into the air and he flies around. And it's great.
Right. Good job.
And after that, at that point, Marty goes outside to look after Citizen Brown, who gets hit by Edna driving the DeLorean and dies on the spot. Just gets hit real hard.
Yeah, I'm surprised he even lived long enough to tell Marty to look at the paper. Like, if you're like 70 and you get hit by a car like a DeLorean, you're dead. You're done. You don't get to tell Marty to look at a paper.
I think he was helped a little bit by the fact that at this time he's also fading out of existence. Mm-hmm. Because he's a version of Emmett Brown that grew up a certain way, and this one just had a pretty good science fair. So Science Fair, Emmett Brown, and Citizen Brown are incompatible, so Citizen Brown is fading out of existence. And I guess when he was hit by the car, he was like on the fade out, so he wasn't hit as much.
Maybe. It only hit the part of him that was there. The other part was fine.
Yeah.
But he still got hit by a car and is like 700 years old, so he doesn't get to live anymore. I love that you call young Emmett Brown Science Fair Emmett Brown.
Yeah, we got this science nerd over here, just trying to drive a car through the air. And Marty's like,
I got Science Brown, Citizen Brown.
I couldn't be paid to care about a flying car. I am 4 movies past that at this point. So Marty's just like watching Citizen Brown die, and he's really broken up about it, even though this was always the plan.
Yeah, the plan was to get the old Doc back. Like, there wouldn't be a Citizen Brown to die.
Yeah. Yeah, Marty was always going to do this.
He's still watching his best friend die, so, you know, it still probably hits him in a way, even if, I guess getting hit by a car hits differently than fading out of existence.
That's true.
Literally.
So right after Citizen Brown dies, you're really not even given a second to be sad about it, because right at that moment, regular Doc Brown comes in, and he's like he's just coming here randomly from 1986, just for his own reasons, and he just stopped by and said, "Oh, hey, how's everything?"
I would assume he came back to get Marty. Or maybe not, but I just assumed he remembered that Marty was in that time period, and he's like, "Oh well, I guess I better get him."
They at one point do specifically say why he came back, and I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't that. It was like a specific reason he had to go back to 1931.
Oh, okay. He looks good. I like this model of Doc Brown with like the Hawaiian shirt and the crazy tie.
Yeah, I feel like it's been so long since we've seen that episode 2 and 1 version of Doc Brown that like I'm happy to see the hair be correct again.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember. Oh, I do remember why he went back in time. What? Doc Brown was making Marty a scrapbook.
Oh, okay.
And the scrapbook he was making for him, it's all of his family members from like a bunch of generations back up till the present. Except that Marty's grandma, Sylvia Miskin, didn't have any information anywhere, and we find out it's because Sylvia Miskin normally went at the time by Trixie Trotter.
Oh, what a twist!
What a twist Trotter. That we've talked about every episode of this podcast until now, when it's finally revealed.
Yeah.
So that's why Doc Brown had to go back. He didn't know who Trixie Trotter was. So it was like the last part of the scrapbook.
All right, that makes sense. I like that. I feel like that's a good reason. I feel like that makes more sense than him just remembering to go back and get Marty.
I wrote down a list of predictions on this piece of paper before I started playing the episode.
Ooh, do tell.
I wanted just to see, like, I was so sure that it had gotten so predictable at this point, to the point where I was like, I can, with every important character, tell you what's going to happen to them. So I wrote down, we write Citizen Brown out of the timeline, but only moderately fix Edna a bit so she doesn't suck. Clara and Doc Brown reunite. Marty rides another skateboard.
Oh.
Jen's completely back to normal. Trixie is grandma.
Trixie is grandma.
So
I mean,
those
that's
are all
right.
The things I've written down.
How many of those came true?
All of them.
Yeah.
Clara and Doc Brown reunite is stated, but it's off screen. So
yeah, it's interesting that we never even see them.
Yeah. And Jen being completely back to normal, I guess, is implied but not definite.
Yeah, we don't see her at all.
But like, why wouldn't she be? I think if the police state Hill Valley never happens, I don't think she goes punk rock.
Exactly.
And Marty did ride another skateboard.
I kind of wish they did follow up. He did. He did. I do kind of wish they followed up on like some of these characters because I feel like the ending happens very fast. I thought the ending of this episode was satisfying, but in retrospect, I feel like it feels a little rushed. And if this were a movie, I feel like we would have gotten closure on like some of the other characters. Although we get some, but we'll get there.
Yeah. So after regular Doc Brown comes back, you get a visit from Willie McFly.
Yeah, great Grandpa Willie.
So he was a baby in the Wild West and now is an adult in the 30s, which is sort of a weird thing to think about. I always think about these time periods as being very far away, but they're really not any further than the 70s and now.
Yeah. It's very weird.
Yeah, the Wild West was just not that long ago.
The Wild West feels like a long time, like longer than it is.
Yeah, like the Wild West to me just feels before society in the same way that cavemen feel before society. But like obviously,
I don't know if I'd go that far, but
well, just because like in Europe, that's what they have before the countries, like because their countries are so old. So in like California, what we have before California is the Wild West, but that's not like obviously that's not nearly as long ago. So it's, yeah. Anyway,
Great Grandpa Willie, voiced by Michael J. Fox.
He's Michael J. Fox. What did you think about his voice?
I thought he did well. I feel like he sold. I bought it. It's interesting to me. One thing I was thinking of was how every time I heard him, I was like, "This is the guy who played Marty McFly," but I'm just so used to the Marty McFly voice from this game now. So I'm like, these two sound similar but different, and even though you are Marty McFly, now this guy is Marty McFly, so you sound wrong.
The thing about it is that Michael J. Fox is not doing his natural speaking voice. He's like doing a voice.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is a strange choice, considering that it's supposed to sound like him. Like he's the guy. I can kind of see
why they did it. I can kind of see why they did it, considering who else he voices in this episode.
Yeah, but like it's still, if it's supposed to be an older version of a Michael J. Fox like character, he already is older Michael J. Fox. Like you don't need to do a voice to sound more like how you once did. It's fine that you don't anymore. That's true. That's the point. That like if you're trying to get as close to what Michael J. Fox would sound like in the future, boy, have I got good news for you. You are him. You are Michael J. Fox.
Mission accomplished.
So I just thought it was a weird acting choice that like he's putting something on when he doesn't, like he is the guy. Yeah,
maybe it's just because like he's not Marty McFly. Like he is a different character who would not speak the same as Marty McFly.
I guess that's true, but do you think that during the filming of the Back to the Future trilogy, he was putting on a voice then? I didn't think so. Like, it didn't sound to me like it was anything other than his normal speaking voice. I mean, maybe his affectation was different than he would have spoken with in real life, but I didn't think he was anything other than his natural speaking voice then.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's voicing an older McFly from long ago. He himself is older, so there's probably at the end of the day, I think it makes sense that he would not want to sound just like an older Marty for this character.
Sure. I think that's fine, but I also think that later on in the episode, we'll see a very similar voice that he does that I don't think that argument stands up for. But
that's
yes, I agree.
I think it works here, but yeah, we'll get to it.
I mean, like, it's not a knock against him. I just think that choice is strange. But yeah, he does a good job.
Yeah.
When he gets there, he wants to check in on Artie, who is his son, because he found out Artie's getting married to some Canadian. Ugh. Imagine those cold people up there. Those Canadians.
Yeah, I almost turned the episode off right there, but I decided to push through.
Those ice friends of ours.
Those iced friends.
Yeah. Oof. Woof. So, right when he's about to do that, all of Hill Valley disappears.
That means Marty has Canadian blood in him.
Ew!
Don't say that.
Well, there's also the thing where, like, when he goes back and he meets the McFlys in part 3 in the third movie, they're all, like, very Irish to the point where they just have, like, the most cartoon leprechaun voice you could possibly think of.
That's true.
Yeah, so he's got some interesting little cocktail of blood in him.
Yeah, Marty's interesting.
But then all of Hill Valley disappears. Like everything. The buildings and just the roads. It's just a very nondescript hill where nothing happens.
Yeah. Now there's literally nothing around, and they watch it all disappear right before their little beady eyes.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about this part?
So they're freaking out. They don't know why Hill Valley's gone, but they realize it probably has something to do with Edna. She probably went back in time and did it bad. And Great-Grandpa Willie tells them about the old lady just down yonder. So they take a visit down yonder to this shack in the middle of this area. And it turns out that the person living here is an elderly Edna Strickland, who went back in time, it turns out, to the days of the Wild West. And, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to make her remember what happened. You need to figure out where she went from this old Edna who does not remember.
Right, yeah.
And this part definitely reminded me of The Walking Dead. This has very strong Walking Dead vibes to it. I liked it.
So here's the thing about Edna. Before you tamper with the timeline, Edna has Alzheimer's and she can't remember anything and is very senile and difficult to talk to. And in this version of old Edna that was like warped back to the past and then lived until 1931 again, she again has Alzheimer's.
Right.
But we see in the alternate 1986 where she is like first citizen Edna, and also in the end of this episode, spoiler, into regular 1986, she doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And it's like making the statement almost that having a hard life makes Edna more likely to have Alzheimer's.
Yeah. I mean,
that's like real not it. that's not right. That's not how that disease works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had multiple grandparents at this point who have died of Alzheimer's. And
I'm sorry.
I think that it would have happened even if they married Doc Brown. I think probably it either would have happened or would not have happened. And it's not like a 50-50 shot depending on how you change the timeline.
Well, good news, Mitch, because those are the two options in this game. It happens or it doesn't.
Well, no, the option this game presents is it's a 50-50. Whereas what I'm saying is it should be 100 or 0. Or dependent on things like, did you chew on a lot of aluminum foil? They found that maybe that is connected. Like, stuff like
maybe
that.
Maybe she did.
So maybe, like, living in bad things makes her chew on aluminum. I don't know. This sucks.
Yeah,
I just
maybe
think
she
it's
did.
a dumb
We don't
thing
know.
in this game where, like, the loneliness and the senility I get as being like attached to the way that you grew up. That makes sense. But then like the actual forgetfulness and the Alzheimer's, I don't jive with as well.
Well, here's the thing about this Edna in 1931, elderly Edna. She made it a point to not remember. So do you think it might have something to do with her just choosing to not think about it for like her entire life? Makes it very very fuzzy and cloudy?
I don't,
because she does tell you, she makes it a point to tell you she never thinks about her, she never talks about her past or her future.
Right, that is true, and that's a very healthy way to just live. But I don't necessarily think that's the root of it, because when you meet her in episode 1 in regular 1986, she doesn't have that feeling about life anymore. Like, she'll talk about old stuff, and it's still like the problem is still clearly there. And in 1931, old Edna, she did decide that, but I feel like she didn't decide that long ago. I think she decided that
maybe
because she has a hard time remembering everything, so she doesn't want to try, because it's like, for people with memory loss issues, it can be very distressing to try to remember something and then think about like, well, why don't I remember that? Is my mind broken? I don't like thinking about that.
Interesting.
That's how it felt to me. I don't know. I think your explanation makes sense as well. If not for the fact that the 1986 Edna didn't seem to have that attitude.
Yeah. No, I get that. I feel that as well.
So you remind her what happened, and because you're trying to figure out what happened here, why does Hill Valley not exist? She went back to 1876, 110 years before the game's present.
That's a lot of years.
And she burned down all of Hill Valley because there was a saloon there, and she's like, I love burning these. I know how to burn bars so well at this point.
My favorite thing to do.
My favorite thing to burn is a nice speakeasy.
They burn real good.
It's the alcohol burns nice and blue. It's a pretty thing.
Who can blame her, honestly?
I wrote here in my notes that the way you make her confess to this is very Sam and Max. Just the way that it feels. You need to go around her yard and like dress a cactus up like someone she might know, and you need to burn a saloon, which is just an outhouse with a saloon sign on it, in order to make her remember, like, oh yeah, I burned a saloon. And her memory is jogged by seeing you do stuff that is similar to what you did, or what she did in the past.
Yeah, you know what? Thinking about it, do you think she just, like, she pushed this memory down so deep and that's why she doesn't remember? Like, because she says, once you remind her what she did, she really gets upset. She breaks down. She's like, I'm a hooligan. Do you think the reason she doesn't remember is that she chose to really push that memory down, and it's a repressed memory that they're bringing up?
Yeah, that's a complicated question. I think that is what they're trying to say. But she has Alzheimer's. Like, she very clearly has it. So I don't think there's a reason she wouldn't remember a specific thing. Like, she would forget everything. Right. But I also think narratively they are trying to equate her forgetting it with guilt.
Yeah. Which
kind of feels weird. Like, either make that what it is and not do the Alzheimer's thing, or make it Alzheimer's and not do the guilt. But like, it's muddy. This part of the game is a little muddy in terms of writing.
Right. I still liked it enough. I thought it was an interesting way to progress the story and find what we needed to.
Yeah, we talked about this on the podcast before, where just a pet peeve of mine is talking about mental things incorrectly. Like, if you
right.
want to do an Alzheimer's thing, do it for sure. That's interesting and cool, and an unrepresented part of humanity in media. But like do it correctly, and I don't think that it did.
I feel that.
Yeah.
It also well, to be fair, I feel like this game didn't do a lot of things correctly.
Yeah, sure, for sure. I don't know why they would start here, but I care about this more than other things. So
yeah, I care about this more than say young Emmett talking to his father.
That's absolutely true. So you follow, once you find out what year that happened in, which was 1876, you go back to then, and you're all of a sudden in movie number 3, Wild West Hill Valley.
Wow.
This is cool to go to. This was a fun thing.
I think it would have been cooler if we got to maybe see a little more of it. We really are just in the one spot, but it's still neat.
Well, yeah.
You know, obviously you can't fit a whole explore the Wild West at the end of this last chapter of a story.
So this is 9 years before the time period that movie 3 takes place in. So not Kid Tannen, Mad Dog Tannen.
Beauregard Tannen.
Beauregard Tannen. He's already been here for quite a little while.
Beauregard's a fun name to say.
And he's setting up a saloon, and Edna just hates that shit. You're not allowed to do that around her. And so she's going to burn this one down too. And
she just comes along and thinks she can take charge.
This is where the big this is where part 1 of the big like boss fight puzzle thing that is mandated to be in every Telltale game happens. Did you care about this at all? I didn't care about this one.
I thought it was a little exciting. I like that we got a Tannen. I thought the stalemate between her and Beauregard Tannen was a little interesting. Setting off this trap. It didn't blow my socks off or anything, but I was invested enough, I would say.
Yeah, Beauregard Tannen has a gun pointed at Edna, and Edna is holding the torch that if she drops, it's gonna drop on all this lighter fluid and just burn the place down. So they're at a standstill because if he shoots her, she'll drop the torch and burn his saloon down. So what you got to do is knock Tannen out and douse the torch at the same time. And figuring out how to do that is hard.
Yeah, Doc tells you. You hear him yell out, "Oh, if only someone could take you both out at the same time."
He really does lay it on thick that time.
And Marty's like, "Cool, great."
And sure enough, you're able to rig the chandelier with some pickle juice. And
I gotta say, Mitch, if I were the star of an adventure game, if I had to do shit like this, I would probably not. I would blow this.
Yeah.
I feel like one or both of them would be dead if I were in charge of this.
Yeah, I would probably find out how much better society would be if we just killed the Tannens off right now.
Yeah, I would probably just like, instead of sneaking up there with the sandbags, I would just sneak out of the saloon and leave.
Yeah, we know that the Tannens have never been good people ever. So like,
yeah,
it's
just take them out, just end it.
End the Tannens.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, who cares about Biff? Do you think society is better off having Biff in the future? Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're right, Dustin. Yeah, right.
Well, I guess killing him means no Kid Tannen. No Kid Tannen probably means Trixie and Artie don't get together, and then Marty's as good as dead.
That's true. And I think Kid Tannen, I think the thing they were trying to say with Kid Tannen was like, it was a weird kind of gang moment in American history where a lot of that illegal organized crime sort of was the backbone of the communities they were in. So without those speakeasies and without those gangs, Hill Valley would probably never become a respectable town.
Right. Thanks, Kid Tannen.
Yeah, thanks for doing that, I guess.
He really saved the day.
So after that, Edna tries to drive away in the DeLorean. And then this is part 2 of the boss fight, where Marty rides a hoverboard which Doc just has because he was in 2015 recently.
He got it because you need it for the plot.
Yeah. And Marty's skitching off of Edna's car, and he's got these synchronizer things where if he puts these synchronizers on Edna's DeLorean, Doc's DeLorean can sync up with it, and they can become intertwined. And that at that point, if Doc goes 88 miles per hour and goes into the future or whatever, Edna will too.
Yeah.
Which is
what do you think of this? What do you think of this big finale showdown?
I just don't like these boss fights. I think
they're fine if they're like bigger, but it really doesn't feel like this is that big an ending. Like, I think back to Sam and Max, and I think back to like Charlie Hotep.
Yeah, Charlie Hotep's the one
I
always think back to as like a good example. But even the good ones of these feel like the adventure game thing is supposed to be about bringing your knowledge of the community and how the game works and how these items work together, and like sort of tying all the loose ends. Like, that's the cool part of playing an adventure game, to me at least. And these boss fights are not reflective of that. They don't do that. They like say, okay, now it's a completely different setting. The setting is never connected to the rest of the game. And everything you need is right here, and it's like really small, and it might be tricky to think through, but like it's always just using these machines and people and items that are not connected to anything else that you've done in that episode. And it feels hollow to me every time.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like I would be fine with them if we weren't doing these every week.
Yeah,
it comes down to this every single episode.
It does.
But like if I'm doing this like once a month, then it's fine. Every episode needs a climax. But you just get so used to them. You know they're coming, you know what they're going for, and you just get a little sick of them. But I think on their own, I don't have a problem with them. It's just when you really get used to them after a few.
You really do. And things that you get used to, it's like, it's one thing if you're getting used to it and you think it's good, and then it's another if you are also thinking like, well, I'm starting to see the seams in this. I'm starting to see why this is kind of not the best design it could be, and I'm getting very used to it.
I get that.
Yeah. We started this podcast, and I had the hypothesis that we would feel like we really like the early Telltale stuff, the Sam and Maxes and the Strong Bads and the Monkey Island sort of point-and-click adventures. And by the time they change over to Walking Dead, we like that style of just basically choose your narrative thing, we wouldn't like it anymore. Because like we are more old school players in that way, and that's what we like in adventure games. But you know what? I don't think I was right about that. I think that as we're gearing toward that genre shift with Walking Dead, I'm getting more and more ready to say, like, yeah, you made the right call. I think it's time to get rid of that old style.
Yeah, well, I do think it's just because we're doing these every week, and we are, like, so ready for change at this point. Like, we've played so many, and Walking Dead comes around, and it's like a breath of fresh air. It's just not like those old Telltale games. But I really feel like once we start getting into that, we're going to feel the same. We're going to get burnt out on those because they're just all the same thing.
I kind of just don't think we will in the same way, though. I don't think we'll get burnt out in the same way, because those games are so frictionless. I mean, narratively, you have anxiety for characters and stuff, and that's a new kind of stress. But like, if a post The Walking Dead Telltale game takes an hour and a half to do, that's just how long it takes. You will not get stuck. Other than, I guess there's obviously going to be some edge cases, I'm sure, that will come up where we get stuck. But for the most part, you're not trying to do things. You just watch things happen.
The puzzles aren't the meat of it.
Yeah.
And even the puzzles that are there are pretty not hard.
Yeah, in some series, that is so exaggerated because you get to points like Minecraft, where that was so narrative and so cinematic heavy that they were able to convert it to a Netflix thing that's just a choose your own adventure without changing the gameplay that much.
I'm interested in getting to that. I do feel like, you know what? I think it also might help because once coming up, we're going to be kind of mixing it up a little. Because we still have older games to go through, so we'll be kind of going back and forth between like the newer Telltale and the older Telltale. I think that'll kind of help break things up a little and make both feel a little fresher than they would have otherwise.
Yeah, I'm excited to like throw Wallace and Gromit and The Wolf Among Us like right after each other. And just
what a weird combo.
Yeah, just like one of each of the styles. And then I guess probably a CSI game, which I'm not excited for in the same way, but it will similarly break up the pace. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess, man, I didn't want Back to the Future to be the falling out of love like arc of our show.
Yeah.
Because it's frankly really early in the show.
Yeah, I mean, I really do feel like I brought it up before. I feel like part of it is just because we did Sam and Max season 3 beforehand, which did feel like it was kind of shaking things up a little. You know, you got Max in there. It looked like they were really trying to breathe some new life into the classic Telltale formula. And then Back to the Future just kind of goes back to it. And, like, it tries some things that are similar to Walking Dead, but not really enough. Like, the things that are more similar to Walking Dead are kind of more, like, you know, flavor. It's like, yeah, you can pick a nickname and they'll keep calling you that for the rest of the game. And, like, there's some dialogue options that change some very small things. But overall, it just feels like a very basic early Telltale game.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And yeah, I just feel like our expectations, because we were very positive on Sam and Max season 3, and then going to, I mean, we did do CSI, so maybe also our expectations were a little higher with this one too. We were like, okay, well, we got the shit show out of the way. Now we can get to something really good.
That's true. I think we were both really excited for Back to the Future to bring us out of the funk that we were in with CSI.
Yeah, and it's so weird. I just feel like I'm repeating myself from last time, where I don't, like, hate this season. I just feel like it's kind of the circumstances around it that made me not like it as much as I want to. Because I'm sure if we, like, played this early on, it would be fine. I would like it fine. But, you know, after some high highs and some low lows, now we're just kind of, like, in the middle. But in a lesser middle, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think this episode is singularly pretty good, but it's like it doesn't save the rest of the season like a good episode should.
No, it's not like an amazing season finale. It's just better than what we had.
Well, I was alluding to this earlier, but then I got sidetracked because I forgot that we were talking about The Expanse and stuff. What I wanted to say before was, I think that the number one thing that hurts this series of games, or this season of games, more than anything else, is the episodic nature that Telltale seems to be, like, chained to at this point in their history. Obviously, they're doing stuff like Nelson Tethers from time to time, where it doesn't need to be a 5-episode season. But even Nelson Tethers was supposed to be 5 episodes, or at least feels that way. I don't know if we actually got confirmation on it, but it seemed that way, that Nelson Tethers was like a loose episodic thing. This game, if you kick out a little bit of the cruft from, okay, so episode 1 and 2 are the first 1931 arc, right?
They kind of complete a story. It feels like that should just be one episode, is those 2 episodes.
Well, yeah, that's sort of what I'm getting at. Like, that's one episode. And then episode 2 is all of the alternate 1986 stuff. And not only can you cut some of the bad stuff, you can add more 1980, like, alternate police state 1986 stuff, make that its own thing. And that's episode 2.
Yeah.
And then, like...
That's episode 3.
I know, but what I'm saying is if you rewrote it, so episode 1 is just episode 1 and 2.
Oh, you're saying, okay, I'm following you.
And then the second episode would be what is actually episode 3 and a little bit of 4. And then the third episode is like the second half of 4, where you're coming into the past with Citizen Brown, and all of 5, where you're going into like the weird alternate states and stuff. If you just made those 3 longer things, and it's just a trilogy of episodes, just like the movies are a trilogy, that all connect to each other like that, and you maybe make them the length and scope of old LucasArts adventure games, which are, I think, like 1.5 to 2 Telltale episodes in the way they feel, with the scope. This would be a lot more successful creatively, I think.
I totally agree, and that, in retrospect, really makes me think...
Or skip all of that, just make it one big game. The way that like... what am I trying to think of? What's the game I like that you haven't played?
Outer Wilds?
No, Terrible Toy Box made it. Ron Gilbert made it.
Thimbleweed
Park. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, that I can't ask other people what the games I played are. That's just not a nice thing to do. But Thimbleweed Park, in the way that it's a much longer point-and-click adventure, but it does it in like chapters of its own thing. It doesn't feel episodic with the chapters. It just feels like chapters. That could have been this, and I think it should have been this.
I agree, and you just, in retrospect, made me think that it's kind of weird that they saved the saving Citizen Brown from Edna in episode 4 for episode 4. I feel like that would have made a better, like... You could have used that to be the big ending of that episode rather than the beginning of the next episode.
Totally. Yeah.
And then just have that episode focus on, going back. It's weird. So I'm there with you. I agree. Why didn't you make this?
Yeah, let's finish up the synopsis. You go back to 1986, or sorry, 1931 with Edna. Edna crashes into the side of the prison with her DeLorean and gets arrested for that, and they think she's drunk.
Immediately. She's immediately arrested after driving into the building.
Yeah, so Edna gets arrested and thrown in jail, and Marty and Doc are like, close enough, and they go back to 1986 to see if that like didn't mess up things too bad.
All's well that ends well.
And it turns out that the present is pretty all right. Doc gives Marty that scrapbook we talked about earlier. And then Edna comes up and she's hanging out with Einstein, which is already weird because she never liked Einstein. And Doc's like, "Oh, why were you with Einstein?" And Edna says, "Oh, I always watch Einstein." And it's revealed at this point that Edna, in jail, fell in love with Kid Tannen.
What a twist.
Yeah, a real twist. So now she's Biff's grandma.
Doesn't that seem like that should be a... Well, they say stepson. She says step-grandson. Or step...
Is it stepson or step-grandson? Because Biff is...
I don't remember.
Biff is your dad's age,
stepson.
Not your age.
Yeah, stepson.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's weird. That's a weird thing to have.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. I guess it didn't affect too much. Because they seem pretty fine with everything. Everything else seems like the way it should. So they're like, all right, cool, fine, who cares?
It didn't affect too much, but it did make Biff just never be a bad guy. I guess he's only that sort of beta male GIF that they or not GIF, Biff, that they have when they change his past in movie number 1.
Yeah. yeah, I didn't that like directly tie into Marty's parents getting together? Like, wouldn't that affect something like that?
Who knows?
I guess not. I guess it was. I guess it was fine.
Yeah, that's a lot of how this like whole series feels. If you include this as the canon Back to the Future 4, and you think of it not as lesser than the movies in terms of just the actual things that happen, at this point you got to just be like, well, you know what? If I'm not dead, it has to be fine. We're not gonna fix it. It's just gonna be what it is.
Yeah, who cares? We spent too much time trying to get it like this. This is fine.
Yeah.
Who cares?
So after all that, it seems good for a second, and then here's the cliffhanger. 3 Martys from the future, all played by Marty McFly, and they're all like 30 years older than current Marty.
3 Martys.
They're all dressed in different ridiculous future outfits, and they're all like arguing that at this point in time the timeline changed again. And it's like, hey, you messed up my timeline. No, you messed up my timeline. And they're all trying to figure it out. And Marty is talking to Doc, and he's like, who's the real Marty? And Doc says, you are. That's not even a good question. And
stupid.
So they get in the DeLorean, and they try to like sidestep the 3 Martys that just came from the future.
Yeah, they just say, nope, fuck it, we don't want to deal with it.
I'm not playing this game.
We just had a whole season.
Marty says, where should we go now? And Doc says, thrill me. And I wrote here in my notes, Doc has completely given up. Thrill me? That's no, you can't, with the time stream? You're gonna break everything. Don't just thrill me.
Yeah, he's just like, whatever, who cares? I'm done with this. I'm an old man, Marty.
Yeah, I think he realized, like, if I don't ever see my real wife, Clara, again, it's like, we had some good years. I can't be too attached to that kind of stuff.
I do.
Just thrill me. Take me on a ride. Let's go to the 50s.
Yeah, I mean, we just did this shit. Who cares if any of us get wiped out?
Yeah, let's go to a Nirvana concert in the 90s. Who even cares? It doesn't matter. Let's go.
Let's go to dinosaur times and kill every caveman.
And that's how the game ends.
I love the idea of them just not caring and just fucking everything up. They just purposefully go back in time to what they can change now.
Yeah, I think they're clearly trying to set up a season 2, or at least leave the option open, while also feeling like a very complete story into itself.
Yeah, I think they did that fine. I think they did that well enough.
Yeah. I don't think that they really left themselves enough of an option with season 2, because it's just like, well, 3 Martys, but we like immediately don't care about them and leave them, so that's it, so they don't matter.
I guess the thing is, they're from the future. At one point, don't they mention that like it only really fucks things up if you mess with the past? If you go in the future, well, that hasn't happened yet. Who cares?
Yeah,
you can fix it at some point. But you're not in any like big hurry, so they're like, look, these 3 Martys will still be here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not important to not change the future unless you start to care about those people that you meet in the future, because you are writing them out of existence. But
yeah,
as long as you never meet them, like, you're always writing a version of you out of existence in the future by changing different things in your day-to-day, even without time travel. So I guess you just
erased the me that doesn't do this podcast.
Yeah. Oh. Dustin's a little burnt out on this podcast right now.
No, I meant that in a good way. Future me never did this podcast, but now there's a future me who is who's played every single Telltale game.
Yeah, imagine that. There's a version of you not too distant in the future who's played every Telltale game and is not better for it.
Yeah. I also have it written down in my notes. Something similar I just wrote down. Marty and Doc just say fuck it.
Yeah. I have it written down. Doc gave up.
That just sounds so much more sad.
Doc gave up. Doc just gave up.
He's like, look, I'm like 400 years old. I don't care anymore.
They do at the
if I
beginning
die
of this
in one of these time periods,
say that Doc is around 100 years old, if not more. But he's been getting like body replacements from 2015 where they just do that because 2015 is the future.
I guess we missed that one.
Yeah,
I missed when that happened.
He got a face de-age. Well, I guess Botox exists, but it's not like this good. You can't just look
I guess
younger.
It's better in that timeline. Maybe he's like mostly robot. Maybe like we didn't see a part where like his face came off and there's a bunch of like robot parts underneath.
Oh, that'd be cool. Maybe there's in season 2 of Back to the Future, there's an episode where he needs to work with magnets, but he has to admit to Marty like, I can't touch a magnet. I'm two robots inside of a Terminator like body. Like I can't. Play
He's
with
two
magnet.
Robots.
Yeah, he's 3 or 4 robots inside of a Terminator.
All standing on each other's shoulders like a kid in a trench coat.
Ew. If he like runs too fast, the top robot slides off, and you can see it all like mush around in his body glove.
Legs Doc, you need to collect legs Doc and midsection Doc.
I
got it. That would be a very creative route to go down for Back to the Future. I'd be down.
The big stinger at the end of the episode is, Marty, I've been 2 robots the whole time. 2 robots, huh, Doc?
That's pretty heavy.
Well, that's the episode. You want to get into our segments?
You know what? I would love to.
What's your potent pickup?
My potent pickup for this episode is the recording device.
Oh yeah,
honestly,
the flowers. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, there's not a whole lot, and this episode isn't really about pickups and using items.
Yeah.
But you can use the recording device on every character. There is an achievement for it. And that's why I put it, because it was the only one that you could do other stuff with.
Yeah, this episode kind of feels like how I sometimes feel when I'm DMing Dungeons and Dragons, where like I get into a groove of storytelling, like an aspect of the story that I kind of like, and I just think like, yeah, well, let's spend this episode telling the story. And then I forget that it's like a game with mechanics and there needs to be puzzles and enemies or something.
To be fair, I think it's fine. I like story progression
in the D&D. Yeah, Dustin's in my D&D game, by the way.
Yeah, I've been playing with them, and like I love when we do other stuff too. But I got to be honest, like sometimes we have episodes with big battles. We just recently had one, which was great. But at the end of that episode, I was so relieved that the next week would just be like story. Just the relaxing parts.
I do want to make it more balanced, but at
good.
this stage, like everyone's level 3 still. There's really not much of. There's no such thing as a small battle you can throw in yet. Like later on, when you're level 5 or more, you can throw like, well, let's just throw some level 2 battles in, and then it'll feel more like pepper on a dish rather than the main course. But that's a diversion,
right?
Anyway, my potent pickup was George's
like...
picture.
The picture you've had since the beginning of the game that you never used?
Yeah, I thought they were leading towards some sort of like, oh, and this is why I've had it the whole time. And the fact that they didn't, I kind of like it more.
It's just there just to have, I guess.
Yeah, it's just there to have. You have the... it's just a keepsake to remember like what you're working toward the whole time. You're just like, I just want my regular dad back. That's, I guess, what Marty cares about, and it's interesting to see that be a point of interest for Marty, because we've learned to hate George McFly over playing this game. But
yeah, they really make him suck again.
Yeah, but that's the picture I like, or that's the potent pickup I like.
The potent picture I like.
Golden moment. What is your golden moment?
I like the whole science fair bit. I just thought, I don't know. I just thought it was a good introduction to this episode, I was like, okay, well, this is a major moment in Doc's life. There's been a lot of build up to this. And, I liked the setting. I liked walking around the school, seeing all the different booths. There's a lot you can do here. There's like the House of the Future. There's the glass maze we didn't talk about because it's not that interesting, but it's fine.
Yeah.
There's the whole part with recording Edna. So I felt like it started pretty strong in this episode.
Yeah, mine is specifically within that stepping on the hose. I didn't like the puzzle.
Even though you didn't like the puzzle, you thought it was a good like story beat.
Yeah, I just thought it was. I liked Marty almost killing Doc. I thought that was it was narratively strong, and it showed where these characters have gone over the course of this game, because sometimes it feels like these characters haven't done anything over the course of this game. So to be reminded that like, no, we are in a different place than when we started is cool, and this one very much does that.
Yeah, I liked seeing the bloodlust in Marty's eyes.
I enjoyed that.
He decided maybe I'll just kill for fun after this.
Speaking of, who's your weekly guy?
I am going to say Doc Brown this episode. Regular Doc Brown, because it was great to see him again, and I liked his Hawaiian shirt.
I'm going to go very similar, and I'm going to say Citizen Brown, because I liked how arch villainous he got trying to drug his younger self.
I thought that was very interesting, that they basically make this character who's been your friend in all of these movies and a good chunk of this game. Now he's like the main villain trying to stop you from this guy who normally helps you put the time stream back. Now he's trying to not do that.
And you can tell Christopher Lloyd had a good time with it too.
Yeah, I think he consistently does a great job in the like, even when he's like pretending to be Jacques Cousteau. I think his performance throughout this game is very good. I'll say that. I think most of the actors in this season do a great job.
Yeah, if I can, maybe I want to do a weird weekly guy, and I just want to say Christopher Lloyd, the real person.
Okay.
I think he shines very well in this episode and this game in general. If that's too avant-garde for you, Dustin, I'll just say Citizen Brown, but...
Here, you know what? I'll let you say both.
Okay, I did.
This is the last time we're ever going to talk about Back to the Future on this show, so you know what? I'll let you have your candy.
That's less likely than you think, but sure.
Wow.
Speaking of, that has been our show, and that has been our coverage of Back to the Future, the game. We're going to spend a couple weeks off between this and next is the first episode of Jurassic Park, right? Yeah, that is correct. So the next episode, if you at home would like to get ready for that, we're playing Jurassic Park. It's sort of hard to track down. We found a relatively inexpensive way to play these games legally, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But again, we are taking a few weeks off just to recharge our batteries and to celebrate the holidays. We're recording this episode prior to Christmas, even though you would be listening to this in the week between... Wait, is that right? I think that's right.
When are you planning on getting this up?
Well, it's always Wednesdays. So yesterday is Wednesday for us as we're recording, and that is when episode 4 went out. So yeah, the week between Christmas and New Year's is when you'll get this, and then as the New Year starts, you'll get a couple of waiting weeks between this and the next thing. But the next thing will be Jurassic Park, episode 1 of 4.
Are you excited? Are you excited to play Jurassic Park?
I was more excited to play this than I am for Jurassic Park, I'll say that.
Yeah, me too. I think even after finishing it, I'm more excited that I played this than Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I love dinosaurs. Probably not as much as some of our friends. We have this friend Jeff who's just definitely going to outdo us on dinosaur love. But for the most part, I never really got into Jurassic Park nearly as much as I got into Back to the Future, or other like similarly cult classic movies, not cult classic, just regularly classic movies. Like, I don't know, Star Wars or Harry Potter. Jurassic Park was always a number of rungs below average for me personally. I've never seen any of the ones other than the first movie. So I will at least watch the trilogy before we record that series, and probably also the world movies. But I don't know. Yeah, at least I'll at least watch one of them. Is what I can promise.
Yeah, I'll at least watch the first one
to re-up my familiarity with the world. I don't know what the game is about. I don't know if it's a prequel or if it's characters from the movie or if it's new characters. I have no idea.
Yeah, same. I don't know anything about this.
Yeah,
other than I hear we talked about it before, how this one doesn't have a great reception from people.
Yeah, on the plus side, this is the first one where they do the narrative choose your own adventure type of gameplay. So like this is the switch in the genre. The Walking Dead is not the first one. This is the first one. So that's
isn't that interesting how like Jurassic Park came out, no one liked it, it got bad reviews, and then Walking Dead comes out right after and it's like Game of the Year.
Yeah.
It won like tons of Game of the Year awards.
I guess it's just this formula is such a thing where it's narrative first. So if the story is good, it's great. And if the story isn't, it isn't. And I think that's what people have said in the past about Jurassic Park and why it might miss its milestones. But this episode has been going on for quite some time, so I think we'll leave it there. We'll see you when we come back. Do you want to call it the end of January?
Yeah, I think that sounds
like
good.
A month-ish from now.
Yeah, we'll see you in a month, everybody.
Yeah, don't hold us to exactly that, but like around that time.
I think it might just be exactly what we need. We're getting a little burnt out on this show. So I think some time off will do us some good. We can come back in with some fresh eyes and energy and rip raring ready to go.
Yeah, we started in, I think, May, and we just haven't taken a week off since. So
it's almost been a year.
It feels like we've taken a week off because there was a gap there when we did the CSI games.
Yeah, we had a little time, but
I mean,
you know, it kind of evened out.
That was still fewer weeks between episodes with the CSI games than there were cases in CSI. So that was actually us hurrying up, even though it didn't feel that way. Until then, about a month from now, where can people find you, Dustin?
You know what? People can find me on the internet on Twitter and Instagram at AmazingDJDustin. I think you'll be able to spell that pretty okay. Mitch, where can they find you?
You can find me at The Wolf FM on Twitter. That's @ TheWolfEFM. And until then, happy holidays. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, mate.